Here's that, and here's that. Hey, everyone. Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. And my guest today is David Tillman. It's on this side of the screen. David Tillman is a Final Cut Pro editor and producer of lots of films that you've heard of. But today we're going to talk about Apollo missions to the moon, which I've been finding out about myself just watching the Apple series. They have a kind of a fake series of what happened. It actually it's turning out pretty well, but I'm learning about it there as well. So, David, the Apollo missions to the moon, what did you learn about Apollo that you didn't know prior to working on it?
Oh, so many different things. I don't really know where to start with that one.
Anything big? I mean, what's your biggest take?
I mean, I think everyone knows about Apollo 11. I really knew nothing else about any of the other Apollo missions that led up to 11 and even Apollo 12. I guess everyone's familiar with Apollo 13, but sure. 14, 15, 16, 17. So it was really interesting to see kind of what some of the other missions were about, and realize that we actually did land on the moon more than just once, and that, they kind of kept going back kind of for scientific purposes, doing different experiments, trying to find specific types of moon rocks and stuff like that. Things that I wish we actually got to cover more in the documentary, but we did tend to focus on sort of the earlier part of the Apollo program, leading up to Apollo 11, Apollo 8, for example, the first time they orbited the moon.
Okay.
And they actually did a live TV broadcast on Christmas Eve, 1968. Which is one of my favorite scenes in our documentary. So yeah, there were just a lot of process and sort of all the little steps leading up to the first steps on the surface of the moon that I found fascinating.
So the actual first landing on the moon then, without a human on board, was which one? Do you remember?
Without a human on board?
Yeah.
Just like them making sort of a contact on the moon?
Yeah, or orbiting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was technically one of the Apollo missions.
Okay.
But Apollo 8 was the first one to go into the orbit of the moon with men on board. And then Apollo 10, they actually got very close to the moon's surface and kind of basically went 99% of the way without actually landing. So it was kind of baby steps until they were ready to actually make the landing.
That's interesting because in the Apple pseudo documentary thing, they did the same thing. They got close to the moon and they could have landed, but they didn't actually do the landing that time.
Right.
That was interesting. I never thought about that, but that's the moon, landing on the moon. Even like we did in '69. That was the last time we were on the moon, correct?
No, I mean, well, Apollo 17 was in, I believe 72.
Okay, 72.
The final Apollo mission.
And all these years since then, we haven't done anything with the moon as far as people landing.
Yeah, a lot of people love to bring that up. But when you actually go back to this time in history, you see that public opinion about the moon landing and the space program in general, after they land, it sort of starts shifting to, hey, why are we spending tax dollars on this? There's so many problems on Earth. Why are we spending all this money going to the moon? And sort of for what purpose? Because once they've been there 5 times, collected moon rocks, I mean, what are they really doing? Right. Pushing the envelope. So it's kind of funny because I've seen that questioned a lot. But when you actually go back and take the temperature of public opinion at the time, people didn't really see much of a point in going back, at least at that point in time. So I think when the moon program shifted into the space shuttle program, a lot of the sort of infrastructure to actually send people back kind of went away with it.
Okay.
But as they're trying to do it again soon, supposedly. So.
Well, can you imagine doing it now the way we communicate instantly with Twitter and the high quality, like this video we're doing right now, it's such extreme high quality. We could do minute by minute by minute on the space shuttle and everything, constantly updating with live videos, live chats. It would be people would watch probably the biggest TV event in the history of the world, I bet, if they did it again with that kind of communication.
Yeah, it is. It was actually one of the cool things to watch as I worked on the documentary was actually the quality of the technology changing from the beginning. Apollo 7 was the first Apollo flight that had a live TV transmission from space. And it was like very grainy black and white footage, barely watchable quality. You could kind of see shapes moving around, but very little detail. And then by Apollo 17, they're transmitting color video back from the moon, and there's actually hours of it. So even back then, there was a lot of live stuff happening, and I think people really just got used to it, and the novelty kind of wore off for a lot of people.
But there wasn't social media in those days. It wasn't Twitter. It wasn't Facebook.
True. It wasn't as accessible.
Instagram.
Just take out your phone and be watching a guy on the moon,
Yeah. Minute by minute on Twitter.
A golf ball.
Yeah,
space.
Exactly.
So
I think it would be a lot different nowadays just because of social media and stuff. Just the immediacy of it and the higher quality video transmissions and stuff. Just like you said on the phone and stuff. I think it would be phenomenal, just exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to. I would watch. I mean, they are doing, the launches are happening, and there's obviously have been a lot of live broadcasts from the space station and stuff like that. So I think that stuff's happening. It's just not happening on the moon.
Right. Well, it's something special about landing on the moon. It's just something special because the people, the people that have been born since then, they don't really, realize or they didn't experience the actual landing, so it'd be brand new to them.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. That's one of the things that I really wanted the documentary to capture was this feeling of what the moon represented to people before we went there. The sort of unattainable celestial body or whatever in the sky that was sort of the subject of ancient, religions contemplating it, and Galileo and sort of what people thought of the moon and sort of the impossibility. There's the famous old French film depicting them taking a rocket ship to the moon that we got in there. And there's a Walt Disney film, Man on the Moon, I believe it's called, which is sort of like a mid-50s depiction of what space travel might be like, and they kind of preview their Tomorrowland Disney ride at the time, the rocket ship to the moon ride. So we tried to build in this sort of montage at the beginning, giving this sort of fantastical view of what people at that time felt about the moon to sort of get you into the mindset of what someone back then might have felt so that you'd understand how amazing it was that we were actually going to try to go there.
So our friend Mars Larson Nielsen says there is no moon. It's a space station, common knowledge.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people show up in the YouTube comments with their theories about this. That's one thing you'll notice when you get into moon content is that there tend to be a lot of people that don't necessarily believe we went to the moon.
Right.
I will say I listened to hundreds of hours of mission audio. I saw thousands of photos from space. A lot of documentation that a lot of people worked on this.
Right.
And I'm very convinced that they were working on something that was real.
I am too.
It would be amazing to me to think that somehow all those people were under the false impression that they were working on something that was all a huge lie.
Right. For what purpose?
I mean, the purpose makes sense to me. Like, this was the space race. They did want to beat the Russians there. It was a matter of sort of American pride and superiority. And on some level, it would make sense that there could be a propaganda reason to fake it. But one of the things about the U.S. space program all along is they wanted to be transparent about that, what they were doing, kind of in contrast to the Soviets. They, broadcast everything. They were much more honest about their successes and failures along the way.
Right.
I'm not saying they were completely transparent, but
Right.
the whole time, I think, the whole point was that they were going to sort of be forthcoming about their status as they approach this goal. So to then at the last second sort of fake it, even 6 months before the sort of deadline that Kennedy had set before the end of the decade.
Right.
It just doesn't really feel like it adds up.
Yeah. We got another
we
comment.
had to address the elephant in the room at some point.
Right.
If this comes up in any Google searches, I'm sure there's going to be some fun comments on your YouTube channel.
Mars says, by the way, congrats on the doc, David. Looking forward to seeing it. Sounds great. And he says, kudos to you, Richard, for getting David on here. All I had to do was pay him like a couple $100. He was here.
Yeah, it's actually, you can watch it on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, it's a National Geographic documentary, and all their stuff, a lot of their stuff is on Disney Plus now. And I'm sure there's other ways to watch it. If you were to Google it, maybe there's ways to
Plus, it will be on other places as well. I mean, even if it's only exclusive right now, it will be on other places, I'm sure. So I'll definitely be watching. I thought it was, maybe I looked this morning, I thought I could rent it somewhere. Was it Amazon? I can't remember. But I looked at, I saw I could rent it. So I will be renting it. I'm a big space person. I really like that space stuff. I always did since I was a kid. So it's talking about all the footage you listened to, and I mean all the tapes you listened to and the footage. How many hours of footage did you have in this documentary?
Well, I believe when the documentary was released, there was some press about how much we had, and I can't remember those exact numbers off the top of my head right now, but hundreds of hours of both. I mean, we had access to a lot of mission audio, which actually there was multiple tracks for different communications in mission control that we had access to. So when you imagine that, we had that for Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, and when you imagine that, these missions were days long, and we had sometimes 10 to 20 different tracks of communications. I'm not saying I listened to all of that, but we kind of would key in on different parts of the mission we knew we wanted to cover, and then we would search all this audio to see if we could find any interesting conversations people were having. Suffice to say, we had hundreds, thousands even of hours in-house, whether that all got actually listened to, probably not, but again, we kind of keyed in on specific moments that we wanted to listen to. Sure. And then we had, access to tons of archival footage from the missions themselves, and all kinds of news reports at the time, from NASA and other, National Archives and stuff like that. So I was going to ask you, a lot to look through.
Did you get most of your footage from one source? Was it from NASA, or was it from the National Archives, or kind of a combination of the two?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people have National Archives footage in collections. We had access to those. We did our due diligence researching, trying to find whatever we could. It was really important to us to understand how people were experiencing these events, not just kind of focusing on what NASA was doing, but what the rest of the country's reaction to it was.
Sure, absolutely.
So we were searching, especially kind of in Florida where the launches were happening, or in Houston where the astronauts lived and where mission control was. We wanted to sort of get local coverage from those places, the families, the wives of the astronauts, kind of how they were covered by the media. And
the Apple, like I said, the fake documentary, they cover a lot of the wives and families stuff. Not that it's a real documentary, it's just a fake one, but they cover a lot of that stuff, which is interesting because sometimes you just don't think about that. You just don't think about, like you said, the lives in the country that was surrounded in Florida and stuff. So one of the things that people have requested is that you leave some awards for somebody else to win.
I think there's plenty for other people to win. I'm just trying to gather my little pile over here, like a squirrel.
But you every time I talk to you, you got some other kind of award. So the one behind your right shoulder is an Emmy?
That's an Emmy we got for our Challenger documentary, which was actually one of the early documentaries I edited with Final Cut Pro 10.
Right.
It's actually an Emmy for outstanding research, which, again, I feel like Final Cut was a huge part of that process of sifting through, so much archival footage.
Oh, I couldn't
very quickly and being able to be organized about it. And really, I haven't looked back since that. I've tried to use it on as many documentaries as I can. I really feel like it's uniquely suited to the kind of work I do, where I'm, taking in so much footage, and it's kind of a lot to look through, and I can skim through a lot of it and organize it in any number of ways, and use smart collections to help cull stuff when I have a specific thing I'm looking for in that moment.
Right. So how do you organize the footage and stuff at the beginning? Do you do stuff in the Finder first, like keep a separate audio folder and keep a separate year folder, or is it organized in the Finder at the Finder level to start with?
A little bit. I mean, the number one thing we do is we have a clip catalog for these shows. We have a very specific naming convention we use, where every different source of the footage or photos or audio has its own 3-letter code.
Okay.
And a clip number. So, each show has its own code. So every file is kind of given this specific naming convention for stuff. And I can use some of the information in that naming convention later if I need to create a keyword collection of a certain source. For example, I could type underscore in that 3-letter code, underscore, and that would come up, and I could just access all of that source very easily. I try to have our researchers put the dates in any clips where they know the date of that specific clip. Chronology is very important in these documentaries. So
absolutely,
anytime I can have that information just easily searchable and accessible is really important to me. But the way we end up doing it is because the nature of these documentaries is that we always have incoming footage at all times. There's no time where we're done and we kind of have everything and there's nothing new. So basically, we just have a new footage naming convention with the folder that's like the date of that new footage. Within that folder are the sources of the footage. Sure. So when I drag in that folder, I get the different keywords as the folder names. So I get the new date. So if I need that, I need to like access the new stuff I got on last Wednesday, I can kind of just click on that keyword.
Right.
And access all those clips that came in that day.
So the clips themselves inside the folders, are they named sequentially or anything?
Like I said, they're organized by source.
Okay.
But then they have that naming convention as well, so that they kind of have a lot of searchable things about them.
Right.
I try to sometimes direct things by story beat or by, if there's a person in it or a certain moment that it's depicting, try to put those in the description within the file name. But to be honest, in some ways it's inexact at times.
Sure, you get so large. Right.
I have people helping. So if I am looking for something, I can just say, "Hey, can you help me? What's the name of this clip that I'm looking for?" And sometimes they'll just, send me a message with the name, and I'll just search for it and find it.
So Mars asks, how many editors worked on it? Shared environment? What technical infrastructure did you have?
So, I did have a couple of, I had an assistant editor, and I had my friend and colleague Jay Frosting, who, another Final Cut editor who helped with some of the online preparation. But I was the main editor on this, and I just had my own RAID drive that, we kind of had mirrored essentially by a few different people.
Okay.
And I've had different research drives with most, if not all, of the media on them. So no, it was not really a shared environment. It wasn't on a server, but people had access to the media, so they could send me an XML. Sometimes they would send me an event XML with several clips in it that would have, markers or favorites added in, and I would just import that XML and kind of immediately access the parts of the clips that they wanted me to see, and that made it really great. I mean, I really love using favorites.
I do too.
And having someone type in as the favorite, sort of, whether it's sort of transcribing what that is right there or a brief description of what that favorite is, because, I can literally just click the favorite. I can carrot down that clip and kind of read through sort of the highlights very quickly. And then I can just click on the favorite, and it's a range, and I can just cut it right into my timeline.
Yeah, I use favorites a lot too, but I usually rename my favorites so I can look, when I open a clip up, I can see what the favorite's name is, and it helps me.
Right, exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah, I like when someone sort of gives a description as the favorite.
Right.
And I read down. So I had some great researchers and producers that also had Final Cut on their computers and would do this sort of story producer work, right in Final Cut, and then share XMLs with me. And that really helped me to quickly, get new stuff into the cut that I needed.
So the film stuff that you got, I presume it was standard def?
Well, a lot of stuff from National Archives that we had rescanned, we would have scanned in HD. Okay. But of course, it's 4:3.
Okay.
A lot of times, in some cases, we've stretched things when it's been up-resed, and then we squeeze it.
Okay.
Which sometimes helps, I think, get a little better resolution, possibly. But ultimately, the approach we usually use is that we blow up these images to fill the HD frame. So we're not remaining faithful to the 4:3 pillar boxed look. We're kind of creating a new framing.
But it makes it a much nicer final product to see it like a full frame, 16:9 frame or whatever. It just looks nicer nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that's what the networks that we work for generally prefer, and that's why we've started down that path. I mean, I think there's some times where it does create a little bit of a problem because it doesn't quite work. You're kind of missing the context of something. And I am a purist in the sense that I sometimes would like to see the image as it was originally shot and sort of not lose any of the information.
Sure.
But like you said, I mean, it just fills the frame, and I think at the end of the day, it plays more like a movie, the way people expect to watch a movie these days when you're using the full frame to tell it.
It seems more modern, unless you said like there's something in the frame that you want to show the entire frame. Like if you were showing the Kennedy assassination, you don't want to cut any of that out for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes with the TV transmissions and sort of the lower grade video, one of the devices I used was I would actually have like a old TV set matte cutout, put the image in the TV, so it would kind of feel like you were watching TV on an old TV from the 1960s.
Right.
And that kind of allowed me to use more of the 4:3 image, not blow it up and lose as much quality, and also kind of give you this feeling that you're watching television, and that's what that broadcast was, a television broadcast. So,
and I think that's very effective. Whenever I see that used, I find that very effective, that technique. So what is the poster behind you? What's that? I know you got an award from, who was it from recently? Producers Guild Award?
So I was nominated for Producers Guild Award for this film. I think the awards are tomorrow, actually.
Oh, okay.
This was nominated for 2 Cinema Eye Honors Awards, which are sort of nonfiction documentary awards, and it won for Best Editing for Broadcast Film.
Excellent.
So that was, very surprising. This is a very amazing category, in awe of a lot of the other nominees. So I was shocked to find out that I won, but
no, why would you be shocked?
Very gratifying to be recognized.
Absolutely.
Yes, we had some Apollo posters made. My Tom Jennings, who's the director of the film and whose company 1895 Films I work for, loves to commemorate us finishing these shows and getting a lot of posters made, and we have them hanging around the office. So that's what you see behind me, our in-house poster that we made. So
do you like the things you do? Do you like producing or editing or both?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the opportunity to be a producer and also a writer and director as well on some of our projects. And all those roles, are different in their own way. They're collaborative in different ways, and they give you different degrees, I think, of your own creative stamp that you can put on things. And
right.
I think it's a good exercise to work in different roles, and kind of some projects, your expertise really should sort of overshadow maybe someone else's, or vice versa, to sort of be like one of the main storytellers, or be the editor, just sort of pressing the buttons and trying
sure.
to bring someone else's vision to life. And I think I've kind of run the gamut over the last 10 or so years, different projects I've worked on, where I've kind of been trying to just sort of be the hands of the director and kind of do what he says, put the cuts where he wants them, and
sure.
use the footage that is requested, and find the music that they want. And then other times I've been a little more of the one taking the lead and being sort of one of the main storytellers. So I really do enjoy that. I think for me, sometimes it's hard to take a back seat and not be involved in sort of the producing part, especially
yes.
in these shows where I feel like I want to kind of be even a part of the research part, where I'm trying to find things in the world that, rare film or rare photos or things like that, where we try to emphasize finding stuff that no one's ever seen or hasn't seen recently in our films, and kind of give you the feeling that you're watching something for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Treasure hunt. So
yeah. Well, you working on these different series. This is one of the series, the Princess Diana one. I'm not sure how you got those tapes about OJ. I remember when that was going on. Like, how did you get those? Get to use those tapes? But we won't talk about that now because this is about Apollo.
I didn't have anything to do with those deposition tapes, but that was an interesting one for sure to work on. So
you have a whole nice niche of series that you're working on. The Lost Tapes one and the other series that you have, and this one, it looks like it's fantastic. I can't wait to see it. And you. So what other? It's up for a couple of awards. You've already won one from the Cinema Eye Honors Awards. You won that one for best outstanding achievement in broadcast editing. You got that. And then there's one tomorrow night, you said, and you have like 2 or 3 more, I think, right?
It's actually up for a couple of sound awards, actually mixing awards, the Cinema Audio Society and the Golden Reel, maybe.
Okay.
Which I'm not personally nominated for, but our sound team, the sound mixer, and some of the sound designers that worked on the film in post are nominated. So obviously, that's amazing. And and they did an amazing job. And
I presume they use Pro Tools?
Yes.
Yes, everybody does.
We use X2 Pro to get them, everything. And they seem to very happy with that process. We have an amazing music composition team at Bleeding Fingers Music House, and they did an amazing score for this. So I think the music mixer is actually one of the people nominated too, and they made it, the soundtrack's available too, actually.
Wow! So did they? The original stuff that they wrote, did they kind of try to keep it 60s, 70s style or feel?
No, I don't think there was any special efforts made to limit it in that way, but it's sort of a orchestral, very cinematic feeling soundtrack. One of the interesting things they did is they actually used from Sputnik, the Russian satellite that sort of started the space race,
right,
had kind of a famous beeping sound that it made, and they sampled that beeping and kind of used it as a theme whenever the space race storyline would kind of present itself. That beeping would recur in the music. So,
well, that's very clever.
Yeah, that was a really cool idea. We don't do it for the awards, but obviously we put our heart and soul into these documentaries, and it's great to work on, and it's great when they get recognition. So.
Now, are you a member? I talked to Michael Yanovich, editor now.
Yeah, I've never actually met him. I don't believe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, when I had him on a couple months ago before the Creative Summit, I asked him if because he's 27-year avid editor in LA, 27 years he switched to Final Cut. If he has a secret cabal in LA for Final Cut Pro editors, and he said, actually, we do. I was wondering if you remember Facebook group they have a secret Facebook group.
No, I'm a member of that cabal, if you want to call it that. I mean, I've been to a couple of meetups.
Okay.
I think Patrick Southern was one of the main
instigators,
organizers and instigators of that. It's been a while, but it seems like our numbers are growing, I think, in general. More people coming around, thanks to people like Michael writing great articles. I read one of his articles where he actually had some good videos, screen grab videos, screen recordings showing,
right,
the doubters just how much time you can save using Final Cut if you get over the 2-week hump that so many people seem to not be able to get over.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the more people that can kind of fall in love with it and become evangelists for it, it rubs off on people. I think it does. It can't help but rub off on people.
Well, one of the things that I've learned, and I've got this pretty much firsthand from Apple themselves, is Apple dedicates what they consider appropriate resources to different tiers in Final Cut. In other words, they dedicate so much effort to Hollywood, and they do. They have some, dedication to getting into Hollywood better, but they also look at colleges and schools and YouTubers and everything else, and they divide their resources up to all those things, not just to one. They're not just aiming to get into Hollywood, for example, but it is on their radar, absolutely is. But they dedicate what they consider the appropriate amount of resources to that. And the thing is, a lot of the things that you're doing for Hollywood, of course, filter down to everybody else.
Right. I mean, or does it filter up?
I think
that's
both ways.
Sort of, in the end, maybe their best chance at it really getting into Hollywood is it's sort of getting into the youth market, and then as those people grow into filmmakers, and they want to use the tools that they're used to using, then maybe it'll kind of come from the next generation in a way. But yeah, I think some people that are professionals that love Final Cut are frustrated. There's certain features that they haven't gotten that would make their lives a little easier. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think overall, so much time is saved just by the overall user experience and speed and stuff like that, that for me, it makes up for some of those things. I mean, like you said, I hope they are still trying to keep the pros happy. But I think at the end of the day, they're probably more focused on pleasing the mass amount of users they have, which is people that don't know even about some of these pro features, you know.
They have everybody on the radar. They have a list of different tiers, like I said, and they do. Hollywood is one of them, absolutely one of them. So as far as the pro market goes, I got the biggest kick out of it, and I knew it was going to happen. When we got the Mac Pro, people are saying, "Oh, that's too much machine with too many PCIe slots. I didn't want that many." Well, you got them. You know, it's just like, this is a pro machine. I have one right here that we're broadcasting on. I absolutely love this thing. Absolutely love. I have some RAM sticks coming today. I'm going to install later today, but I love it. It's just so easy to work on, and the PCIe cards and everything. It's just fantastic.
Yes, I'm very jealous. It's lucky enough to have an iMac Pro here to work on, though.
Well, I was nice, jealous of you guys having the iMac Pro for years, because I was stuck on the 2017 iMac. What really aggravated me, it only had 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. The MacBook Pro has 4, the iMac Pro has 4, and their iMac only has 2. I couldn't believe that. So that's one of the main reasons. But it's just the expandability of this thing. You know, yeah. I can get the what is that, accelerator card if I want to later, if I need it. I don't do Progress right now, so I don't need it. But I've got a USB card, and I got more RAM coming today. And I put in one of those NVMe, a 2 terabyte NVMe drive, and in a $15 PCIe card. It's getting 2,800 megabytes a second. A single NVMe drive and just a generic PCIe card is getting, and that's in an 8-time slot, not even a 16-time slot.
Well, I hope you're shooting 8K so you can really get the most out of it.
No, I'm stuck with 4K. Well, not stuck. I like 4K right now. Even if I get a 6K camera like the Blackmagic, or if the GH6, whenever that comes out, if they get one, I think for me right now, I think 4K is doing pretty well. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd love to get my hands on one of those and take it for a spin. Hopefully, sometime in the next around. Year or two. Yeah,
they'll be around. They'll have refurb ones at some point. People might be selling them. I'm planning on keeping mine for 5 or 6 years, unless they did a big upgrade, and then I would go ahead and trade this one in and buy the new one. But it would have to be, I don't know what it would be. I mean, I have so much expandability. I have one PCIe card, one graphics card, the Vega Pro 2, which is 32 gigabytes of VRAM, which I've way more than I ever had before. And I'm not using that maxing that out by any stretch. So even with the same CPU 5 years from now, you can still make it go fast with graphics cards and whatever else they update at that point. Who knows? I doubt if there's just going to be one accelerator card. I think other people are also going to make accelerator cards for whatever they want. Red might make one for it. You know, right now it's just ProRes, but we'll have to see. So are you excited about 2020 for Final Cut Pro? I mean, we're expecting 10.5.
We're overdue for some of our 10.5.
We are.
So I mean, it must be coming at some point. Like I said, I mean, I'm probably a little too happy with the status quo, where it has what I need. Obviously, there's little things that could be done that I wouldn't mind them having. But yeah, I mean, the speed seems to be improved. And,
yes. 10.4.7. Yep. Metal 2.
And on this iMac Pro, like, the exports are just blazing fast. I worked on an Avid project earlier in the year, and it was like there was assistant editors here and post supers like supervising the export of the cut, and they had to mix it down, and then they were mixing down each act and then stringing the acts together, and burning in time code, and it just seemed like this all-night marathon to like export the cut,
Right.
and it just took forever. It's just like I just exported our rough cut of the latest documentary I'm working on. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it was like a 2-hour rough cut, but it didn't involve a lot of stress or unnecessary people's time, or I don't know. It just felt very simple.
Yeah. So we're expecting 10.5 at NAB. Not that anybody said anything officially, but if Apple makes a presence at NAB like they did a couple years ago, they did it for 2 years in a row. If they announce that, typically they did it in February before NAB. If they make that announcement again, that's probably when we're going to see 10.5 because it's overdue. It's been 2 years and 1 month since 10.4 was released, which is really, really long. The other full number updates were 14 months, 16 months, and 18 months. Now we're at 25 months, which is the only one that's longer was 10.0 to 10.1. That was the only one that's longer. So
yeah, I mean, people said that they had to redesign a lot of stuff for the new Metal
2, but that's done. That's done.
Right. So that might have been a setback in terms of the overall updating.
Sure.
That maybe that ate up some of the time, or maybe they were kind of in a holding pattern of some sort, waiting because they knew that things were being redesigned under the hood, that they would have to then.
Sure.
I imagine there's a lot of factors involved in these things that we don't know about. But, I just feel like they must have, I know they have the best and the brightest over there, and they're always trying to innovate and come up with, not necessarily trying to imitate what someone else is doing to solve a problem, but come up with sort of their way of doing it. And
absolutely.
And I feel like hopefully those things are worth the wait once they figure out their way, and they put their brain power into it. So,
are we going to see you at NAB this year?
You may.
That'd be great.
I would love. I've never actually been, but I would love to go. And I've talked to some people about possibly going. And talking.
Cool.
So,
because that's not too far from you, I presume.
I'm in LA, so it's it's in Vegas, right? So it's
right.
A short flight or a medium length drive.
Right, there you go.
So yeah, I'd love to see you if you're going to be there.
Oh, yeah, I'm. If if Apple announces something, I'm much more likely to be there because the only reason I go there is for Final Cut Pro stuff. I mean, I like Blackmagic a lot. I think they're doing a great job, but I don't know if I'd come from the East Coast to Vegas just for that when I can watch it online. But
well, maybe we'll get the LA cabal to go up there, and then
you go.
You'll get that draw.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm going to let you go, David. I know you have things to do, but I just want to say, listen, from the Final Cut Pro community, first off, thanks for editing these things in Final Cut Pro. I know that's what you prefer, but it just helps to have people like you and Michael Danovich in LA doing it itself. There's a couple of other people, of course, too, that, people, Mike Matzdorf is in there plugging away as much as he can, and Patrick Southern, when he's on, I don't know if he's going to move to New York because of his Frame.io thing, but he's been there for years as well. But just congratulations on the awards. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I mean,
really
like as you know, I prefer it. I try to turn other people onto it. I try to edit anything I can with it, and hopefully more people will catch on.
Does your company prefer it as well? The 1895 films?
I think the biggest problem is that the editing pool is shallow.
Okay.
So the problem is if I'm not the one editing it, then they usually go with Avid because we have sort of an ISIS and that set up for series that we've done with multiple editors. And, there's just when you put out a call for editors, you're going to get a lot more responses, and a lot of the people that we've worked with know Avid. So
sure, that's fine.
I think we've had good experiences with it at the company, and they like it for a lot of reasons, but it's not like what we use on every project.
Have you seen any Apple TV series shows?
Excuse me. Sorry.
Have you seen any of the Apple TV Plus shows?
I saw the morning show, which
I like that.
It really got better as it went along.
Yeah, it wasn't quite. I was hoping it wasn't going to be all politically correct and everything, and just preachy, and it wasn't. It has multiple sides to the story. So, and then the M Night Shyamalan. It's really good, but it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I want to check it out. I've not watched as much of that as I would like to. It seems like there's been a lot of good stuff coming out lately. So
it has been. I've been pleasantly surprised.
And watch some of the movies that have been coming out, and also agree with my wife on what to watch.
Sure, of course.
So hopefully we'll catch up soon on some of the other stuff.
But anyway, I'll let you go so you can get back to work there, and just absolutely congratulations and thanks
again, Richard. It's great to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Hope to do it again soon.
I hope to see you in LA. At Vegas.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.